Hey, everybody. I want to welcome you to Fast Track Coaching. I'm Dane Sanders, and we've been doing this for a long time, over 3 years now. We have been able to broadcast conversations with some of my favorite photographers from all over the world and also favorite business people and entrepreneurs. And we've had an amazing list. I feel very privileged to be on the phone or the Skype or the conversation or whatever it is with these people. And today is no exception. And I'll get to my guest in just a second. If you're unfamiliar with the show, I want to give you an update as to how things are working. We've tried a lot of different variations. In the very beginning, it was just audio, and then we started doing live video recordings or live video broadcasts. And now this one is a recording, but we're with you live. For what that means is if you're watching it when it's being broadcast live, the recording was actually done a little while ago, but both myself and my guests are in the chat room with you, and we're excited to answer any questions, engage in the dialogue as we're playing it. But this just cuts down on some of the snafus that have happened in the past where technologically we're trying to do one thing, and then we're trying to moderate a board and keep a conversation going. It just didn't seem very natural or organic. And now it allows me and my guests to just have a regular old conversation like we would over coffee. In fact, it's over coffee. And today I'm privileged to have my Girl Scout cookies from my daughter. But the point is just to really have a conversation and for you guys to join in, and hopefully it'll be helpful. And again, I don't think today's any exception. If you do, though, are watching it live or even are watching on the replay, the best thanks you could give us for making this thing available to you for free is to give a shout out to Adorama, at Adorama, or to my guests, or to myself. I always love the encouragement. But to engage the conversation, the last thing we want to do is just have a broadcast. We want this to be helpful for you and your business, to move your creativity and your business forward just a little bit this week. And if you do, then we'll have succeeded. But that's going to be on you and on us as a community. And I hope this is helpful. Well, today's guest, this conversation is exciting on a lot of fronts, and I'll get to those reasons in a minute. But Ann Ruthven is someone who I've known for a number of years now in the photo community, and as a photographer and as a leader, as someone who has had an influence on a lot of photographers around the world, who has a very interesting dynamic where she has found herself in a lot of different contexts as a professional and having to reset in a brand new market. And we'll talk about her experience because I think it's one that many of you guys can relate with, or even if you can't relate with it, meaning you haven't moved around a ton, you might be in an environment where right now you just don't have the kind of traffic or momentum that you prefer, and you feel like you're starting from scratch. And I think some of Ann's insights will be really helpful. So without further ado, Ann, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. And Dane, I was looking through some of your archives, and it's quite amazing what a prolific interviewer you are. You're like the Regis Philbin of...
That's a first. I haven't gotten Regis. That's a first. I think it's my silver right here.
No. It's not. No. I was listening to an NPR interview of Regis Philbin, and he was talking about his interview process, and something that you said earlier actually was exactly the same thing. You know, I just want to share information, and I want to make you look good, you know, and that's such a key thing for an interviewer because it gets people... It opens doors to anybody. When interviewers are really critical or they make people, you know, feel bad, then they don't get as many interviews. But you're really good at, you know, kind of bringing out really good things out of people. And I think that's one of your talents that is often, you know, kind of unrecognized. But I just wanted to recognize it and how awesome it is that you've been doing this for so long. I mean, I was looking through the archives, like I said, and the Seth interview and the Guy interview. I mean, I love that you've pulled in people from outside the industry, people that I admire as marketers, that I admire as social media experts, authors. It's awesome. And thank you. I'm so honored to be, you know, somewhere on that list of people.
Well, you have a full-fledged citizenship on that list, and thank you for saying that. That's really kind of you. And honestly, as you know, those people and you as well, it is, I can't believe my good fortune that I get to be in these conversations with folks. And it's easy to make folks like you look good because you are great. And it's, and by the way, I just want to add, especially right now, I made fun in the pre-show that you look like you have a wind machine. And we should just clarify for folks that this is not a high fashion shoot with, this the flowing hair. This is just high humidity in Australia right now.
Yes.
So why don't you share a little, Anne, on some of your own journey as a photographer, and what in the world, because you don't sound like you have an Australian accent, what in the world brings you to Brisbane, Australia?
I actually just finished a blog post about it so that I wouldn't have to kind of recount all of it on AnneRuthman.com. But the photography journey is probably a little more interesting and one I don't share often. I was somebody who was on a completely different track. I was going to be a music teacher, and this was after I had had a career in marketing and management and finance. And I was really looking for something that I loved. I just wanted to be really passionate about my job, and I wanted to help people, which is why I was pursuing teaching. And in music, which was a creative field, I'd been doing music all my life. And when I got to teaching music in the elementary schools, I realized that environment was not one that I felt like I could thrive in. There were a lot of restrictions. There were a lot of barriers. A lot of parents didn't have a full perspective of their child, and sometimes were holding them back. And it was really frustrating for me to kind of watch this unfold and to not be able to do anything about it. So it was at that point that I decided, maybe music education, at least in the public schools, is not going to be my path. And at that time, I was doing what I'd always been doing. I'd always been taking pictures. I was taking pictures on trips when my choirs would go and tour and things like that. And people loved them. And, when friends would get married, I was the friend with the photographer. I never got in the photographer's way. I was always very conscious of that.
Of course.
But it was one of those things that I just kept producing photography, and eventually people wanted to pay me to produce it. And eventually I was in business. And it was one of those things that I never could have anticipated. I never thought that I wanted to be a photographer. I mean, the models of photographers I had seen were photojournalists who would get shot at in the field. That did not look entertaining.
Right.
And people who would come to your school and twist your head in a really awkward way and comb your hair with a lice comb or something.
Right, right.
I was like, that doesn't look like a fun job.
Right.
And it was really when my husband and I got married that I was like, oh my gosh, there are people who work from their home, from a coffee shop, from a studio. They have freedom and flexibility. They have creativity. They can do what they love. They can take pictures that they love and show them, and people appreciate them for it. So that was what got me into wedding photography.
Got it.
Yeah.
But that sounds like that was something that happened in the United States.
Yes. Okay. So how I got to Australia.
And by the way, let me just add real quick. One of the things I'm really struck in your journey so far is just, it sounds like you were really committed on a couple fronts to finding a fit, both for you and also those you were working with. Like even those music kids way back when, how you really, it sounded like you had this core fundamental belief that there was something that needed to come out of those kids, and whether it be, parents who were trying hard but maybe were missing the mark, or whatever, like there's something about that kind of finding a signature fit that was significant to you. I don't want to put words in your mouth because it's certainly my own bias, but is that a fair deduction from what you're saying?
I would say so. I'm very uncomfortable in situations where it's not a right fit. And so I'm always looking for that right fit, because I understand and I believe that when you find that right fit, everything just falls into place. And even when it doesn't fall into place, the struggles make it worth it. It's like, even if it's very difficult and tough and you're enduring challenging times,
right,
when it's the right fit, you'll do it. You'll make it happen. You'll take the risk. If you have to sell everything, or if you have to, maybe go into debt, you'll take that risk because it's so right that you can't ignore it.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I have a hunch there's a lot of folks who are on this call right now who you're speaking directly to. They wanted a fit. They've been fighting for a fit. They're in a struggle right now. They feel like they're in the fight of their lives. And they, like me, like you, in the middle of it, it's not all happily ever after. It's terrifying. And the reality of in the middle, that's, everyone's in transition all the time. And I get these emails all the time from folks who are just like, they're challenged. They want to maintain their faith in what they were made to do and are terrified to do it some days, and they do it anyways. And for me, they're my heroes. They're the people I dedicated a whole book to, those folks who bet on themselves. And I think you're speaking in a very relevant way right now, because especially as you have gone through all these transitions yourself, and this radical one you're in right now, I can't imagine. I mean, it's got to be exhausting. So give folks a little bit of context for that, because that's where I'd love to drive the conversation.
Yeah. To answer the question about why I'm here in Australia, like I stated on my blog, because I want to be.
Sure. Fair enough. It fits. Got it.
It's a great place to be. It's gorgeous. It's summer right now. It's, I'm in the future, talking to you from the future.
That's right.
But it was something I always wanted to do. I always wanted to travel the world. And my husband came up with an opportunity. He has a sabbatical. He actually has a pre-tenure sabbatical, which is very rare as a professor. Mm-hmm. And
what does he teach?
He teaches music education.
He does. How we met. Got it.
Yeah. And
I was so tempted, and I know I'm not the first to make some joke about you guys making beautiful music together, but I just are you kidding? On a silver platter of cheese, you gave me that right now. That was perfect. I couldn't.
Perfect. My husband's a huge cheesemonger. So basically, his sabbatical gave us the opportunity to be able to travel together for 6 months or more. We're actually doing this for 8 months. We're here in Brisbane for 5 months while he's working with some of his Brisbane colleagues. This is one of the only other places in the world where people are doing the same thing that he's doing. So that's what brought us to Brisbane specifically. And then after this, we're going to meet up with some of his other colleagues around the world as well. He's getting some funding reimbursement for his travels, which makes it a lot more comfortable. Yeah. I'm paying for it myself mostly. We did get a frequent flyer mile bonus out of it. But other than that, I did a lot of things to just kind of make it happen. We haven't been able to travel a lot together because our careers take us in very different directions oftentimes. So that's why I'm doing it. That's why I'm in Australia.
Got it. Now, do you guys have kids?
No kids.
Okay,
no
so
kids.
That's a little less of an encumbrance. That's probably helpful. Keeps you more.
It's one of those things that, I always thought, I got really depressed when I was 30. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm 30 and I haven't had kids, and I thought I wanted to have kids before I was 30 so I could retire before I was 60, kind of thing.
You had it all mapped out.
And not be putting kids through college. But, it's one of those things that life works in funny ways. And if it had happened earlier, we probably wouldn't be able to do this. It probably wouldn't be feasible from a financial or from a family perspective.
Got it. So you are now en route, and it's not just a glorified vacation for you. You're actually trying to be a working photographer in the new context that you're in. And I get that some folks could get a lot of information on your blog. And what is the blog URL so people can have access to that if they want to read it?
They can go through annruefman.com and just click on the blog link, or they can go annruefman.blogspot.com.
Great.
It's really where I am kind of posting things, but all the little fun stuff I do on Facebook and through Instagram, stuff like that.
Great. And it's Ann with an E, correct?
Yes, ANNERUTHMANN.
Got it. MANN. And it's Ann like an E, like Anne of Green Gables.
Yes.
Got it. The right way.
The French way.
That's right. En français. Perfect. Okay, so how in the world is that possible that you're there for 9 months and you actually are trying to get business and make it happen? Like what where I'm going to go with my question is, because this is where people at home are like with pen and paper in hand, they're like, okay, she's going to say some silver bullet magic thing that if I just apply this one technique, I'm going to get, crazy amounts of business. But there is a degree of you're like a MASH unit in the Korean War. Like you're arriving, you're setting up, you're triaging, you're getting after it. How do you stay nomadic and active as a professional when so much of our work seems like you have to build rapport with a client base? What do you do?
Yeah. Well, definitely in the wedding photography industry, that is true. However, when you look at the commercial, the fashion, or the photojournalist industry, you know, they have to be nomadic. They have to make connections all over the world in order to do the work that they do, in order to be employable, in order to stay active.
Right.
National Geographic photographers have to be able to pick up and go whenever. So from that perspective, I think there are people who have better advice about how to get a job when you're traveling. But the way that I've done it is actually just finished a job for Airbnb, and I only discovered that by being an Airbnb client, talking with somebody who had great pictures on their site, and they said, oh yeah, we had a professional photographer come over, you know, Airbnb hires them on a contract basis. And I was like, oh, I love contract work. It's so easy to do. It's easy to pick up. You know, the pay isn't as awesome as if you were working for your own clients. But when what you need is just a little extra cash to help you do more fun things, because you've already saved and done a lot of the hard financial work in order to travel, it's fun money to pick up. So that's been great. And I can always pick up headshots and things like that through connections that I make with people. I gotta say, staying with locals is a huge bonus. Doors open left and right when you tell people that you're passionate about something and you find ways to solve problems for them. Okay,
so I'm deducing a couple things from what you're saying. Number one, the huge one is recognizing yourself as a freelancer. And it seems like, and this makes a lot of sense to me, like within our industry, when you think of those who have a chance to speak at, say, WPPI or some major event, oftentimes they are folks that are more boutique brands, and they really are developing a clientele specific to their market and are committed to that market. But there is a whole other side to our business which has nothing to do with that, where somebody else is generating the leads and has a whole sales process, and virtually every genre of photography. And what you're saying is, like, one quick way is to develop rapport with those kinds of folks that are looking for that kind of contract work, and just develop a great relationship with them, and they'll do some of the lead generation for you. Is that a fair assessment?
Oh, yeah. It takes so much of the work out of it. One of the things I did over the last year in preparation for doing this travel was taking less wedding clients. And when I started taking less wedding clients, because, you know, there's a lot of follow-up work even after wedding albums and all that. And I'm still doing albums for some of my clients right now. But it's just a few of them because I kept the workload low last year. So when I stopped taking wedding clients, I started opening myself up to the possibility of doing more freelance work. And I picked up a great contract with the university that my husband actually works for. So through that contract work, I was able to do quick on-the-fly jobs, go to an event, shoot it, turn it around within the next hour, just shoot JPEG, you know, super easy stuff. And there's really, you know, no prep work. There's no major post-production work, so I can pick up a lot more of it. It pays less, but when you do more of it, it all balances out.
That's great. Okay, so from a freelance perspective, that's really cool. And then it also sounds like you've gotten creative around some pretty progressive companies like Airbnb. I think a lot of folks know who that is, but if you guys don't know, it's an amazing company, AIRBNB.com. And I think, Ann, you wrote me an email about my Airstream, about Airbnb.
Oh my gosh. When I saw your Airstream and I saw, you know, I was like, oh, that would be so awesome.
It would. Well, it's funny. So we had HotelAirstream.com forever, and we actually just sold our Airstream about 8 months ago. So when I got it, I was like, she and I are right in line with what it's for. And there's so many great, like, cool tree houses and castles and, you know, radical stays that you can do with Airbnb. But there's a classic upstart progressive company that, and every company is like this. There's no company that isn't dependent on imagery to promote their brand, and and
they've recognized that even more so than real estate agents. I mean, they know that the quality of the photography makes a huge difference, and so they're willing to give their property owners free photography. I mean, that's huge. And yesterday I was out at it's actually a licensed bed and breakfast out in a suburb of Brisbane where there's mountains and it's farmland and stuff. So it's pretty out there. So they need to do a lot of marketing for their business. And they haven't updated their photos. So they got a free photographer from Airbnb. And now they have updated photos for their website, which
incredible.
Is kind of awesome. Yeah. And I paid. So that's awesome too.
But what? Yeah, you get paid. Airbnb gets promoted. The local deal gets promoted. It gets subsidized by Airbnb, but they're the guys who benefit the most from it. So it makes sense.
And they own the rights to the images. So the Airbnb would have to ask for permission or use their images with the watermark on them.
Right. Fair enough. So that makes all the sense in the world. But on kudos to you for thinking, okay, this is a cool company. I wonder if there's a need here, and then going after it like that. There's a lot of those kinds of companies who have that are being run by kids, like youngins, who get the power of imagery and the difference between, like, it's funny you mentioned real estate. Like, there's some real estate people who are totally committed and geeked out around like 360 kind of ways to view sites, and they invest heavily in that. But they're usually for high end properties, and there's so much more that could be done. For people who really commit to interior and exterior architectural photography, which is not easy to shoot well. I mean, it really is a specialty.
It's a skill. Yeah.
But there's a huge market for that. Like, so say more. So like, what other kind of pieces to the puzzle have landed for you? Like, let's say Airbnb wasn't available to you, and you are a freelancer because you have the skill of photography and you can shoot a lot of different genres of stuff. But you found yourself in the middle of the outback, or you're not in the outback, but you're in Australia. And by the way, for those of you guys who don't know, this is an incredibly nostalgic show for me because I used to live in Australia 20 years ago. I did the classic go find yourself kind of thing. And I did it in Australia, and I was there for about a year and traveled all up and down, all exactly where, kind of the world that Anne's in right now. So part of me is like, if she gives me the right answer to this question, I might just catch a plane, except for my kids. Okay, I got to work that part out. But if Tammy and the kids will come with me, maybe, and Zoe, we'll work it out. But what I love about this storyline, Anne, is you have found a way to basically be portable in any context. But let's press this a little bit and play the devil's advocate.
Right, yes.
Let's say you didn't have the cool Airbnb contract, and you didn't have the college thing or whatever, and you've just landed in the middle of nowhere, and you don't know anybody. I'm hearing you say that one thing you did was you got localized as quickly as possible, whether you're living with somebody or what other means would you do to localize?
Well, Airbnb was actually a critical part of that localizing because it helped bring me to that opportunity, because usually you stay with somebody who's local.
Yeah.
They can give you a lot of local information. We also stayed with some other colleagues, but because they're Alex's colleagues, they're more focused on research and stuff like that, not necessarily connecting things. But they have small business owner relationships and relationships with other people that might have a need for photography.
Mm-hmm.
And if they don't already have a relationship with a professional photographer, then I become the go-to photographer. And that is kind of the case for some of the people that we're meeting here. They don't already have a relationship with a photographer. A lot of creative people already have relationships with photographers, but a lot of professional people don't.
That's right.
Dentists and doctors and things like that. Their world is very different than ours. So to get connected with those people is pretty important. However, one of my strategies before I came, aside from saving a ton of money and selling some things to make it all possible, was to reach out to other local photographers before I got here. And I had actually met some local wedding photographers a couple of years ago when I was here before, just for a visit. And I reached out to them in advance and said, hey, look, I'm going to be in town. If you have a need for a second shooter, or, if you need an assistant, just let me know. I'm here. I'm available. I'm not doing anything else. So, having fun.
Right.
So I'm available to you, and we can work out whatever is going to work for you.
Right.
So I think really reaching out in advance and connecting with people, just connecting with people in general, it's crucial. Whether you're in a new place, whether you're starting your business, whether you're you've been at it for 50 years and your connections are stale. It's so critical to connect with people.
I'm so glad you said that. I mean, honestly, and you guys are at home, you're making the connection already, but if you're struggling and you're like, okay, that's all fine if I'm in Australia, make the link back and reverse engineer what Anne's doing. I mean, I don't care if you're in southern New Jersey right now and you are trying to sort out how am I going to, break through to people, don't trust SEO to make it happen. Like, go eat at the same breakfast shop, go have coffee at the same place every day at the same time, start conversations. like get the same barber, like get ingrained, like entrenched, embedded with your community. And I guess what I'm struck by, I've been really thinking about this a lot lately because of a project I'm working on, but how those exact same principles work in the context of the virtual world. Like, how do I embed myself in a localized kind of way where it's personal, where it's not awkward to have a direct conversation with somebody, or to know people by name, or to beyond just the kind of single dimension gloss of Facebook. Could there be a way to, in a personal way, connect with people and have it be meaningful? And I'm just struck by it seems like a missed opportunity. Like, so many people are trying to mass market in the virtual world and in the very kind of granular local world. It seems like they're leaving a lot of money on the table. Does that seem to resonate with you too, or no?
Oh, you have no idea.
Huh.
Especially because I have never really paid for advertising.
Mm-hmm.
A couple years ago, I was like, maybe I should challenge my idea. I mean, 'cause remember, I come from a marketing world before education, before photography. I know what works and what doesn't work. And I know what a marketer is there to do. They're there to sell you ads.
Mm-hmm.
I know that, oh gosh, it seems like every week there's a new wedding directory popping up that wants you to be listed for free, but you can only put pictures on there if you pay or something like that.
Right.
And you have no idea what kind of traffic they're getting. And having a website and having an online listing is like an online dating profile. It's nice to look at the pictures. It's nice to kind of get a little information, but you're not going to date somebody until you've met them.
Right.
And I think that that's kind of the true in business as well. You're not going to really do business with somebody until you've really met them and you really know something about them.
Yeah.
And we do have ways that people can know us online without meeting us, through blogs and Twitter and Instagram and those things, Facebook. So they can kind of get a sense of who we are, but they still want to know who they're hiring. They still want to meet them. They still want to get a sense of what they're really like.
That makes sense to me. I mean, on so many levels. And of course, the $1 million question is, okay, so that's all fine and good, but how do I meet these people? And I'm probably, I don't want to make a caricature, because these are real concerns. And I've been doing a lot of thinking lately about folks who get caught in, and just candidly for myself, when I've been caught in a scarcity mindset, like trying to make the bills this month, not sure how I'm going to pull this off. And I literally, it's almost like I forget the obvious sometimes because I'm so in a survival mindset.
Inwardly focused. Yeah.
What's that?
When people are really inwardly focused, it's really hard to reach out to other people. When they feel shut down,
or they view people.
Reach out.
Yeah, they view people. Well, I'm cutting you off because I'm so excited because we're in alignment. Like, there's a sense in which when I'm in that scarcity mindset and I'm so nervous, it's hard for me to look at like people in my local community first as people in my local community who I want to connect with, and I begin to view them as like dinner or like shoes for my kids, and nobody wants to do business with those kinds of people.
No.
And that's not what we're talking about here when we say make a local connection. Like, there might be an ancillary effect of you make a connection and you might get business because people like working with people they like, but you're not saying like go to the same coffee shop every day and meet Flo and connect with her so that you can just get work, but like be a good neighbor, like engage in a meaningful way. And what I'm amazed by, Anne, and again, I want your feedback on this, is everything you're saying resonates with everything that Seth Godin said, that Scott Stratton said, that Guy Kawasaki says, that like these Rob Hatch, who's worked with Chris Brogan, like these amazing, brilliant, world-class, they don't even call themselves marketers anymore. Like they are marketers, but they're engaging at a different kind of level. And these are like Pepsi will pay these people $6 figures just to drop in on a meeting, and they have hundreds of thousands of followers around the world. So like you're saying the same thing that they're saying exactly, except for you're actually saying it in a relevant way to our vertical, to our exact industry, regardless of genre. And yet it falls on deaf ears so often. And I'm curious, like any insight on why that is? I mean, you've been in a lot of conversations with a lot of photographers. Where's the disconnect between what you're saying and people actually implementing?
you and I are both coaches for people and mentors, and we have a lot of relationships where we guide people. And so we encounter this a lot.
We sure do.
And it's always the point where people contact us. Yeah. Why isn't anything working?
Right.
And it's one of those things that first people need to have confidence instilled within themselves. So there's usually something that's missing in their confidence bucket. You know, they're waiting usually for something to happen, but it's really something that they need to take action on.
Right.
And they might not be confident because they haven't booked anybody for a long time, or because they have they don't like their website, or because they don't know much about this particular lighting. And so these little tiny things are kind of keeping them from reaching out to other people because they lack that confidence.
Right.
And for some people, they have to solve those problems before they become confident. Very few people, I would say only the really foolish and wisely foolish can kind of put themselves out there without those skills or technique in a very confident way. And I know there are a lot of photographers who have a lot of skills and have a lot of technique that get really upset, frustrated, angry with people who are confident before they have these skills.
Right.
But the difference is that confidence is what makes more connections and more happening.
Yeah.
You could be the most skilled photographer in the world, but if nobody knows about you because you're not reaching out to anybody, nothing's going to happen, you know? And
well,
so
it sounds like you're saying it's actually a critical skill to business. So if you're going to be in the business of creativity, it's an underappreciated skill to be confident and assertive and you know.
You don't necessarily have to be assertive, and I think that's a term that's often associated with confidence and with networking and reaching out to people. But you really don't have to be, because there are a lot of people who can reach out without having to be assertive, and they have their own unique style.
Yeah.
It's different than my style, but I've been able to recognize it. They usually will comment on someone's blog frequently, or they will respond to them on Twitter and start a conversation, or they will ask a question on Facebook or Instagram. And it's a very it's a style of engagement and reaching out and networking that works for people who are more inward than outward.
Yeah.
In other words, their communication style tends to be something that they prefer to write rather than speak. So that's a way that those people can engage that doesn't require, you know, a lot of that outward connection.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, it's funny, like, even as you're describing what you're laying down, there's a number of characters, you know, showed up in my head, the people I could think of that I want to esteem, and I'm tempted to say their name right now, but I also don't want to pigeonhole them, because they're more than that. Like, but one person I will mention by name that really does come to mind, and it's what I'm about to say is a historic reality. It's not a current reality, but historically, I think of someone like Kenny Kim, who, you know, as a dear friend, I love him, known him since he got in the industry. He's a fast tracker. He's a founder, all these different things. We get no credit, though, for what he's done, because on his own, he incrementally, slowly but surely, created a remarkable value everywhere he went. He was the first guy I knew who had like 1,500 friends on Facebook, and everyone was like, but who is this guy? And then he just put himself in a great position. What's that?
Yeah. He's very covert about it.
Yeah.
It's a one-on-one conversation with each person he wants to meet and engage with. He just, and I wish I knew Kenny Kim better to say these things, but from what I've seen of him, his way of engaging is by engaging with very high-profile people. And when those high-profile people are engaging back with him, that draws attention to him that he didn't have to draw attention to himself.
Yeah, I think that's certainly how it started for him, with no question. He would say that too, when I think of like Bob Davis or Mike Colon or different folks like that. But I'm struck, like, you know, he's gotten book deals now. Like, I've shot with him. He's an amazing photographer. Like, he wasn't.
Oh yeah, he is.
And
totally.
I know you're not saying this, but I think sometimes folks can think singly dimensionally about, and I actually haven't heard this critique of Kenny, but like the easy pot shot is, to critique someone like Jasmine Star and say, gosh, she's just one dimensional. She's just a marketer, blah, blah, blah. But my gosh, it's just not true. I mean, if you look at the progress, the
she's
amount
worked hard for what she has. She really has. And she pounds the pavement like
works
every
her tail off.
day.
No doubt.
Yeah.
And I think, but again, it's easy when people are strong in one area that doesn't seem like photo technique centric, to discount what it is as, oh, he or she is just ... And I've certainly been prey to that kind of a critique, and sometimes it's valid. Like I get like why they're critiquing what they're critiquing, and at the same time, I go, but I think I'm more than that. Like objectively, I think I've done, like if you talk to my clients or, so, and that's being falsely humble. Like I know I'm better than that. I know that there's more going on for me, and I know that's true for them. And I think that nobody gets to find themselves in a position of noteworthiness by accident, by mistake. It's because of a lot of work in a lot of dimensions and a lot of directions. And what I'm hearing you say loud and clear is that's part of the equation. That confident, regardless of your personality and how the filter it comes through, you're saying stand up as you wherever you're at, and that's a critical part to this process as well. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, and I think that one thing that a lot of people that I work with tend to assume is that they have to change who they are in order to attract attention or in order to get to a certain level. They don't. They just have to really honor their unique way of being. They really have to honor their communication style. They have to honor their photographic style. They have to honor the things that turn them on and give them a spark. And when they do that and they find ways to connect with other people in a way that is authentic to them, it's, there's no limit. There's no limit, because then they're acting in a way that they don't have to try hard because it's just who they are.
Yeah.
And they'll just love them for that because they see that it's authentic. And I know authenticity is something that we deal with a lot. I think anybody who works with other people always has to question their own authenticity and constantly challenge it, but also challenge other people on their authenticity as well.
Well, it's such a big deal because I've found myself in the past trying to be authentic, which is inherently inauthentic. And I found myself,
exactly.
I found myself in the past being, when I just kind of slow down and breathe and go, well, I am who I am, whether I like it or not. Like, might as well make friends with myself. I've actually seen a lot more growth than when I've tried to create a false self that I think is more attractive or something like that. And I love how you put it. That was really articulate. This idea of just kind of almost just settling in on you, and out of that,
there's nothing wrong with you.
Well, it's actually your best shot.
Exactly. it is your best shot. And if you're trying to do anything else than what is natural to you, you're gonna meet resistance. It's gonna be hard. It's gonna be difficult. It's gonna be a challenge. It's just gonna be so much harder, and it takes so much longer to go anywhere in that direction.
And it's so funny too, because there's already so much that's hard about any of this work that to make it harder by it's like, okay, first I'm gonna climb Mount Everest with 1 foot, and 1 arm, and I'm gonna wear a bathing suit, and then and then one more thing, I'm gonna pretend like I'm an ox. Like it's just it adds a level of complexity that's ridiculous. Like, it's already hard enough to pull off what we're doing, and to make it harder on ourselves by being anything but giving ourselves the best shot out of our authentic selves seems crazy. Well, Anne, I can't thank you enough for being on the show. I love your insights. It's great. It's actually a little embarrassing that we've not had a more extended conversation. I know we've met here and there over the years, but
I know it's like we've always okay, we're going to meet up at WPI.
Totally.
We're going to meet up here. We're going to meet up there. And it never seemed to happen.
Well,
but you know what? I'm so glad that it happened now.
Yeah, me too. And best to you in your adventures. When you're back, I'm assuming you're going to eventually come stateside again. Is that fair?
Yes.
Okay.
I will still have to pay U.S. taxes at the end of this year.
Okay. Hopefully you have to pay a lot of them. That's good news. But
you love you with them.
we'll have to reconnect, because I'd love to follow up and just on the heels of how this goes, and even as you kind of re-enter into the U.S. market again, and I know you do work all over the place, so it's not just the U.S. market, but would love to check in and do a follow-up to see how things are going, because I have a hunch a lot of other folks could benefit from tracking and also tracking their own progress as they move forward. So would you be up for that?
Sure, absolutely.
Great.
And I wanted to do just a little shout out to people who are hoping to move, because even though we didn't directly connect everything that I said to moving
yes.
and relocating to a new place, it fully applies. Moving to a new country and trying to find, little work is the best way to get established in a new market, because it's all about making connections with people. And even if you can just pick up a job here and there with small business owners or other people in the community, making friends with other photographers is also critical. They are not your competition. You have to be networking with them, offer to help them in any way you can. And then if they love you and they love working with you, then they're going to share resources with you. And that's just so critical to getting established in a new place, especially when you're moving. And after moving my business 3 times to 3 completely different demographic markets, like suburb Detroit, rural Indiana, and metropolitan Boston, very different people. The common denominator is always connecting with people.
The Yankees. The common denominator is a hate for the Yankees. That's what I'm hearing loud and clear. I love the Yankees.
The victory is lost. You're just kicking a girl who's already down.
Yeah, no, come on. I love my Yankees. That's all. Yeah. Well, this is great. Thank you. And I actually really appreciate that recap, what you just said at the end, because I think that as folks are listening to these dialogues, so much of this is they're listening, and they're also trying to probably take care of something at home while they're editing images, and there's a lot of things going on, and to pause from that and to locate themselves in the storyline that you just articulated. Like, who can't relate to transition like what you described? And except for yours is extraordinary, and how hopeful for folks who are listening, because you're modeling that, yeah, it's hard work, and you got to commit to some radical levels of connection with people, and that can be scary, but it's doable. And I say this all the time. I'm guessing you say it too. Like, gosh, if you and I can do this, these people can do this, like, for sure. So,
yeah. And it's hard to see it that way when you're not on the camera, on the screen.
Sure.
But, 99% of the time, I'm not on the camera, not on the screen.
Me too.
I'm just pounding the pavement.
Yeah. And you're right. And if you're not working it, that's probably an indicator. So anyways, this is great. I could go on for days, and I will later. But for now, thank you again for being on the show. And for you guys at home, if you want to track Ann, should they just go to AnnRuthman.com, ANNERUTHMANN.
Yes.
They say double N's in your part of the world now. And,
yes, they do. They do. Very cute.
Yeah, thank you. And you eat your Vegemite. You keep it to yourself. So they should go there. And on the Twitter, you're at Ann Ruthman, correct?
Yep. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. I mean, pretty much if you type in Ann Ruthman, you're going to get a bazillion pages. Just type it in whatever device or social network you're using. And I feel really bad if anybody else gets named Ann Ruthman, because they're going to have a really hard time getting into that Google search.
Bless their hearts, yeah. I've actually made friends with Dan Sanders. He's been very gracious to me over the years, so cool. All right, my friend, have a great night, and we'll talk to you soon, or day, or whatever future day you're in right now. So
it is 10 a.m. right now, and so I've still got the whole day ahead of me.
All right, have a good one. Talk to you soon.
All right, thanks.
Bye.